Millionaire discovers his employee's incredible act of love for her mother with Alzheimer's. Amazing. Jack Thompson sat in his corner office, the walls adorned with accolades that glittered like a facade. At 40, he was a millionaire architect, thriving in a vibrant Midwestern city, basking in the glow of successful projects and commendations. Yet beneath the surface, a growing shadow of isolation loomed. He glanced at Sarah, his 27-year-old assistant, her fingers flying across the keyboard, seemingly oblivious to the weight behind her quiet determination. He couldn't recall the last time he'd truly connected with anyone at the company, let alone someone like her, who poured her heart into both her work and her family's struggle. As Jack prepared for his latest presentation, his mind wrestled with the day's numbers, the looming financial crisis that threatened the very foundation of his firm. Projects had failed, budgets were tight, and the prospect of layoffs hung over him like a storm cloud. Numbers danced in his mind, contradicting the flicker of conscience urging him to engage with the lives behind them. The truth was unsettling. Sarah's energy and tenacity had become part of the machinery he barely cared to notice. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The tension in the room escalated as Jack's phone buzzed. He stole a glance, and his heart sank. The spreadsheet laid bare an impending need for cuts, and Sarah's position loomed large in that list. She was junior, expendable. He could clean the slate without a second thought. But even as he fingered the screen, a prick of regret snagged his conscience. The flashes of Sarah's life had begun to unravel, threading through his mind. Moments of exhaustion and joy with her mother. The snippets he'd caught of their lives, fancying a resilience he barely understood. When he stumbled across the homemade video hosted on a muted meeting thread, he felt his breath hitch. A collection of snapshots, her mother in mid-laughter, a discolored sky, and Sarah's gentle embrace, illuminating the struggles of Alzheimer's with poignant love. His heart softened, while questions swirled menacingly. Could he tear apart the bond captured in those frames? As the clock ticked down to a final decision, dread pooled in his stomach. He felt like a puppet as his fingers hovered over the screen. What kind of leader would upend a family's world for the sake of financial prudence? Simmering guilt and a sense of duty warred within him, clouds gathering over a storm he couldn't contain. Then Sarah stood before him, her fiery readiness for confrontation burning through his fog of indecision. "You don't see what's at stake, do you?" she challenged, pain lined in her voice. The desperation that marked her features pierced through his corporate armor. Memories of shared laughter and her relentless dedication sparked an urgent reevaluation of success and sacrifice. As he met her intense gaze, Jack felt everything shift. Fear laced through them, his sense of control slipping away, her vulnerability laid bare. Was profit worth the erosion of something so pure? Hope flickered against the backdrop of despair. The daunting weight of his decision loomed. How could he honor her sacrifices while preserving his empire? Caught in a dilemma that held the fate of two lives, Jack's world teetered on a precipice. Would compassion prevail over the cold calculations that had ruled him for so long? The silence screamed in retaliation, leaving the question lingering: could there be a choice at the intersection of greed and grace? Jack's thoughts swirled chaotically as he held Sarah's determined stare. The urge to flee the emotional confrontation clashed with an unfamiliar impulse to break free from his calculated existence. Here was a challenge that transcended spreadsheets and projections, a call to redefine not just his leadership, but his entire belief system. The minutes dragged on, ticking painfully while Jack grappled with the weight of his choice. He was not just a businessman. He was a man standing on a fragile precipice of opportunity and responsibility. The memory of Sarah's video lingered, each frame echoing a truth he had long buried under his ambition. Her mother's laughter resonated as a plea for compassion, a stark contrast to the sprawling corporate labyrinth in which Jack found himself entrapped. "Sarah," he began, his voice hesitant, trying to articulate a pathway forward. I never realized how much your situation impacted you here at work. You've never let it show. I have to keep working, she replied, her conviction unwavering. Every moment I'm here, I'm earning for her care. If you cut my position, we fall into a deeper pit. Jack's heart sank further. It was no longer about numbers, but a real human struggle that had been silently simmering in his shadowed office. Why had he become so detached over time? Each project, each award won had dulled his sense of empathy, rendering him blind to the people who propelled his success. Your passion for your work, it's admirable. But he faltered, feeling the enormity of his words. No, but I need you to understand that every cut you make affects real lives. Her voice trembled but was resolute. If you let the firm swallow me, it would be a mistake not just for me, but for you too. You're better than this. For the first time in years, Jack sensed a flicker within himself, a hope that perhaps this period of crisis could be a transformative experience. He leaned back in his chair, studying Sarah's face. She was not just an assistant. She was a living testament to perseverance, someone who found strength in despair. Let us be real, Jack began, attempting to flush out his thoughts with urgency. I've been so focused on survival, on maintaining this facade of success, I've lost sight of the essential. I want to change that. What didn't he know was how to proceed, where to start. Was it enough to express his intent to support her, or did he need to find a way to revamp the very foundation of his organization? As the external sunlight spilled through the large windows, illuminating the office, he felt the burden on his shoulders lighten. Perhaps this was the moment he needed to confront looming fears and explore what a deeper connection with his team could yield. Compassion must reign, especially in hardship, the architect's blueprint of balance between fiscal responsibility and humanity. The decision crystallized within him. He would uncover a way to keep Sarah at the firm. But the bigger question remained how to reshape his approach. He would need to challenge not just the company's structure, but his internal narrative of success as well. What if he could lead with purpose, redefining their goals, no longer measuring worth by profits alone? As he formulated the beginnings of a plan, a vision sparked in his mind. Team meetings focused on community, discussions deepening beyond corporate jargon, a culture rooted in empathy rather than purely ambition. He felt something profound take root in him, a burgeoning realization that leadership could emerge from vulnerability instead of steadfastness. Let us work on a solution together, Sarah, he asserted, a newfound determination coloring his tone. Let us redefine this. A faint smile broke through her weary exterior, gratitude evident in her expression. In that fleeting moment, Jack caught a glimpse of a partnership blossoming amidst uncertainty, a chance to breathe life into both their dreams. But the storm clouds loomed above, and with inevitable financial strain ahead, Jack knew that their battle was just beginning. How would the rest of the firm respond to change? What other sacrifices would he need to confront in order to foster this new vision? That question echoed ominously in his mind, foreboding yet invigorating as he prepared for the challenges ahead. The moment of truth was approaching, and he would have to face the unknown with courage. Jack's resolve solidified into a fierce determination. The moment he agreed to help Sarah, a series of decisions cascaded through his mind. He envisioned collective meetings aimed at not only discussing projects, but fostering an atmosphere where vulnerability could thrive. This revelation sent a jolt of both excitement and fear through him. Would his team welcome this change, or would they resist it? The next day, as he walked through the office, the hum of activity felt different. Faces darted between screens, and the tension of impending budget reviews hung heavily in the air. Jack paused at his office door, breathing deeply, almost needing the quiet of his sanctuary before he took the plunge into the unknown of real leadership. He called a meeting, something he hadn't done in a while. It wasn't to go over numbers or deadlines, but rather to share the new direction he felt compelled to pursue. He gathered his trusted team, all the key players who had shaped the company's progress, and set an atmosphere of anticipation. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, he began, his voice steady but taut with the gravity of what he intended to propose. I want this team to embrace a new vision, not purely profit-driven, but one rooted in connection and compassion. A murmur swept across the room. Some exchanged questioning glances while others leaned back in their chairs, their expressions skeptical. Jack pressed on, recalling his conversation with Sarah. I will be honest. I've been neglectful of our culture. We've been so focused on the bottom line that we've lost sight of each other's struggles and triumphs. A hand shot up from the back. It was Mark, his head of marketing, a tough, no-nonsense employee. With all due respect, Jack, we're not a charity. We have responsibilities. Our investors expect results. The challenge struck a chord, intensifying the conflict within Jack. Did he want to risk everything that had been built for the sake of exploration? But he needed to face this head-on. He understood that real growth demanded conflict. I agree, Mark, but I believe there is a way to balance both. What if we embrace the humanity within our team? What if we leverage our connections with empathy instead of strictly financial metrics? Some heads nodded while others remained resolute in their disbelief. The room was a microcosm of his internal struggle, a mix of fear and anticipation. Let us take a small step together, he continued, trying to light a spark of agreement. We can engage in community outreach, offer more supportive measures for each other. We have talented people here, let us leverage that talent for both our benefit and the well-being of others. Like Sarah, who inspires us every day to be better. Mark sighed, and the tension shifted. We can hold team-building sessions, maybe even workshops, he suggested, skepticism giving way to the faintest inkling of interest. A ripple of murmured approval followed, and Jack seized the moment. Yes, exactly. The enthusiasm filled his voice, making it easier to rise above the unease. We'll create an environment where we lift each other, not just financially, but emotionally. We can be a stronghold for each other's dreams. Ideas flowed like early morning sunlight, filtering in through an open window. Jack felt his heart swell at the thought of transforming their work environment into something exhilarating, something that aligned with his newfound purpose. They discussed activities, potential partnerships, and even the feasibility of extending their reach to local organizations supporting Alzheimer's awareness. After the meeting, Jack walked back to his office, a mixture of excitement and unease swirling within him. Progress was being made, but at what cost? What would it mean to fully embrace this approach when faced with inevitable pushback from upper management or stakeholders? His phone buzzed in his pocket, pulling him from his reverie. It was Sarah, a simple text. Can we talk? I have something important to discuss. As he read the words, a thread of worry unfurled inside him. Was the storm approaching again? Would her personal circumstances complicate his budding vision? He resolved to find a way to bridge both worlds, the emotional and the business. But the uncertainty loomed like a gathering storm cloud, compelling him to question how far he'd go to support not just Sarah, but his entire team. Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for another conversation that could change everything once more. How would he respond to yet another revelation in this unfolding journey? Jack paced in his office, anxiety weaving through his thoughts like a tightrope. It wasn't just the responsibility of adopting a new leadership style. It was the weight of Sarah's situation pressing down on him. He could feel adrenaline coursing through his veins, a potent mix of urgency and impatience. The text was simple, yet laden with implications that could shift the direction he had been striving to outline. He glanced at the clock on the wall. Seconds stretched into an eternity as he weighed each possibility. How would this reveal impact his plan to cultivate genuine relationships within his team? Would it fortify or fracture the fragile trust he was beginning to build? He reminded himself of the importance of empathy, yet the nagging doubt about the realities of corporate expectations loomed larger, imposing a fortress of skepticism around his heart. Taking a deep breath, Jack decided it was time to reconnect with Sarah. He stepped out of his office and made his way to the break room, spotting her seated at a small table, lost in thought. Distant but palpable shadows lined her face, hinting at a deeper struggle beneath her composed exterior. As he approached, he noticed her fingers tapping nervously against her phone. "Hey, Sarah," he said, his voice steady yet compassionate. She looked up, a flicker of surprise mingling with relief in her eyes. The unguarded moment made it clear that she had been wrestling with something heavy, most likely a confession. "Hi, Jack." Her smile was faint and reluctant. "I'm glad we could talk. I didn't know how to bring this up, but I think it's crucial for you to understand where I'm coming from." They found a quiet corner in the brimming break room, a place where they could cocoon themselves away from inquisitive ears. Jack could feel the tension radiating from her, a palpable force that both intrigued and unsettled him. He gestured for her to proceed, giving her the space to unearth whatever was weighing on her mind. "My mother," she started, her voice barely above a whisper, "has Alzheimer's. It's been tough to manage that, and my responsibilities here." A tremor of vulnerability crossed her features, her stoic demeanor shattering. "Some days I struggle to keep my focus at work because all I can think about is her condition." Jack's chest tightened. The gravity of her situation struck him like a thunderclap. He understood then that her determination to support her mother often clashed with the demands of her role. Here was the vulnerability he wished to instill in their workplace dynamics. "I can't imagine how hard that must be," he admitted, searching for the right words. "You're doing an incredible job balancing both worlds, but you don't have to shoulder that burden alone." Her eyes, usually so full of resolve, now revealed a glimmer of hope intertwined with uncertainty. Jack felt a surge of determination soar within him. He attempted to articulate a new vision for her role, melding professional expectations with the compassion he wanted to foster. "You mentioned team-building workshops earlier. What if we made it about our personal struggles, too? Sharing our stories might help others understand what we go through and create a supportive atmosphere. You could lead a discussion around this topic." "Led?" Sarah's eyes widened, a blend of astonishment and apprehension clouding her expression. "Yes, you pouring your heart into this could inspire others. This is about us being accountable for each other. It means inviting authentic connections into our work." As she absorbed his words, Jack felt the elements of his own resolve solidifying yet again. This could be his opportunity not just to help Sarah, but to impact the culture of the entire workplace. If they could harness personal stories and transform them into a collective strength, perhaps they would build something transformative. Yet, as Sarah refocused on him, a troubling thought loomed large. Would she embrace this vulnerability in front of the team? Would they take her story to heart? Or would skepticism creep in from others like Mark, who fully resided in the realm of hard data and results? The sharp knock of this reality jolted Jack, but he knew he had to embrace the unknown. In honoring Sarah's personal struggles, he would not only uplift her, but also create a ripple of change across his team. But first, clarity was needed not just for him, but for her. "Sarah, are you ready for this? Are you ready to share your experiences with the team?" Jack asked, challenging her while extending his steady support. "It scares me," she confessed quietly, "but I want them to understand." Jack's heart quickened. Together, they stood on the precipice of something bold, yet fraught with uncertainty. With the right level of bravery, they could uplift their entire team. As possibilities flooded his mind, the stakes expanded. Would they be ready to embrace the storm looming ahead? Jack nodded, determination flaring within him as he thought of all that lay ahead. It seemed that their journey was about to collide with both personal and professional revelations, and the time for bold moves was drawing near. Jack returned to his office, a new energy propelling him forward. The conversation with Sarah reverberated through his mind, already reshaping his leadership principles. He settled at his desk, the usual clutter transformed into an inspiration board, sketches of ideas tumbling over each other like whispers clawing for attention. The prospect of a team-building workshop that centered on personal stories ignited a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years, but a nagging thread of doubt tugged at him. Sarah's bravery was essential, but Jack recognized that fostering an environment where vulnerability could thrive required careful navigation. He needed to ensure that others on the team would be receptive to this kind of openness. Mark's disdain for anything perceived as soft echoed in his subconscious, and Jack couldn't shake the worry that his initiative might exchange personal intimacy for professional skepticism. Determined, Jack pulled out a notepad and began drafting a plan for the workshop. He needed to create a safe haven for discussions, one where the spotlight wasn't just on individual stories, but rather the collective strength forged through shared experiences. He scribbled rapid notes, set ground rules, emphasize confidentiality, and highlight the importance of listening. The act of writing down his thoughts fueled his resolve. Throughout the day, Jack interacted with his team, each conversation serving as a litmus test for how open they were to discussions of personal struggles. He approached Jenna first, an analytical thinker with a sharp wit who often kept her emotions under wraps. During a casual chat, he dropped hints about their forthcoming workshop and watched for her reaction. "It sounds interesting," she replied, her brow slightly furrowing. "But how much do we really need to share? Isn't this all just a way to appease everyone?" Jack saw the skepticism reflected in her face, a reminder that pushing for emotional honesty was going to be anything but easy. Yet he focused on her valid concerns, envisioning ways to frame the workshop around productivity and mutual respect, rather than vulnerability alone. Next, he caught Mark during lunch, a strategic opportunity to spark dialogue. "What do you think about integrating personal stories into our team dynamics?" he ventured, masking his intentions with an analytical approach. Mark raised an eyebrow, his fork paused midair. "Are you kidding? This isn't therapy, Jack. We need results. Getting sentimental isn't going to drive our numbers up." Though frustrated, Jack held back. He knew the value of trusting connections, but couldn't fully articulate it in that moment. Instead of a confrontation, he chose to listen, recognizing that persuasion would need to be gradual, a slow unfurling rather than the force of a tidal wave. Days passed, each leading up to the workshop idea gaining traction, but simultaneously battling internal resistance. Jack's contemplation expanded. Perhaps the workshop shouldn't just be about speaking, but also about listening, an open forum designed for all voices to feel valued, regardless of belief in such approaches. It was a balance he needed to strike that on the morning of the workshop, anticipation sat heavily in the air. Jack stood before his team, their faces a tapestry of uncertainty, curiosity, and skepticism. He felt exposed himself. Here he was, advocating for openness, knowing how fragile the threads of connection could be. "Today, we're diving into our personal journeys," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I believe that understanding each other on a deeper level will not only strengthen our team, but also make us more effective." As he spoke, he noticed Sarah sitting quietly in the background, her expression a mix of fear and resolve. Suddenly, Jack was acutely aware of how much depended on the success of this session, not just for his vision, but for Sarah and every other team member. The doubts began to swirl again. Would it provoke collaboration or resentment? As he continued, Jack sensed the energy of the room shifting, coalescing into something tangible, but the full impact remained to be seen. The moment felt charged, and he understood he was on the brink of a significant revelation. Could this be the turning point he hoped for, or would it unravel like so many good intentions before it? Jack inhaled deeply. The time for courage had arrived, but it wasn't just as everyone in the room had to choose whether to join him on this journey. He turned to Sarah, her nervous energy palpable, realizing that the pivotal moment awaited not in his words, but in how they would respond to each other's truths. The silence pressed heavily before the next question was inevitably asked. Would anyone step forward to share? The room's collective silence felt suffocating, each tick of the clock amplifying Jack's unease. He scanned the faces before him again, taking a mental inventory of their expressions. A mix of apprehension, ambivalence, and latent curiosity flickered in their eyes. Jack hesitated, then forged ahead. He had to embody the dignity of vulnerability he desired to inspire in his team. Sharing doesn't have to be monumental, he encouraged, his voice steady yet imbued with softness. It can be as simple as a moment that changed your perspective. We all have stories. After a moment that stretched into eternity, Jenna shifted. Her brow furrowed deeper, as if wrestling with some inner turmoil. Jack noticed her fingers tapping nervously against the tabletop. What if we're not ready? She finally asked, and her honesty cracked open a dam of hidden worries. I mean, what if it turns into a blame game or something worse? Making direct eye contact, Jack felt the gravity of her concerns. That's a valid fear, Jenna. But my hope is that we create a space where judgment has no place and respect takes precedence. Just as he was about to elaborate, Mark interjected, crossing his arms defensively. This isn't a therapy session, Jack. We've got work to do. Let us stick to what matters. The tension knotted inside Jack, blending frustration and an unwavering resolve. He had sensed Mark's skepticism would surface, and here it was. Instead of pushing back, Jack reminded himself of the careful balancing act he had committed to undertake, steering this conversation without succumbing to the instinct to defend. Mark, I hear you, Jack replied calmly. But isn't a cohesive team ultimately more effective? Doesn't understanding one another lead to meaningful connections that can enhance our performance? Mark's scowl deepened, but Jack saw a flicker of consideration in his eyes. You're still not going to convince me that sharing your feelings is going to make our quarterly numbers look any better. Maybe not, Jack conceded, breeding an unexpected calm in the storm. But fostering trust might be the kind of foundation we didn't even realize we were missing. His statement lingered in the air, powerful and defining. Before the response could cascade into another argument, Sarah broke the silence. I'll go first, she surprised herself with the declaration. Jack could hardly breathe. With measured breaths, Sarah began recounting the late-night drives to help her mother, whose Alzheimer's had turned each moment into a challenge. Her words floated out, shaping imagery that imbued the room with warmth and vulnerability. Jack could feel Mark's rigidity easing ever so slightly. Sometimes, just sitting with her and flipping through old photo albums, Sarah continued, her voice trembling with emotion. It felt like we were building bridges within the fog. Those moments matter. They remind me that connection doesn't have to be linear. As her story unfolded, Jack saw a transformation ripple through the room. Jenna leaned forward, listening intently, while Mark uncrossed his arms, the battle lines of skepticism softening. The workshop, initially scattered with doubt, began to morph into an ode to the complexity of personal experiences. Story after story emerged, some heavy with grief, others lighthearted and humorous, illuminating the remarkable thread of humanity woven through each tale. Jack's heart swelled with a mixture of pride and relief. They were beginning to connect on a level previously obscured by the weight of work demands and expectations. When the last story was shared, an unfamiliar sense of camaraderie filled the space, rendering it alive with potential energy. Jack now stood amidst a newly forged collective, each narrative adding depth and color to the pre-existing framework of their team. But as he surveyed the faces of his colleagues, their eyes glistening with emotion, their barriers gradually disintegrating, a shadow of apprehension settled back in. Although the workshop had ignited flames of possibility, Jack sensed a looming challenge ahead. Was vulnerability truly a bridge to a stronger team, or had he merely scratched the surface? As Mark unexpectedly approached him, his expression inscrutable, Jack felt the anticipation of a reckoning. Would this moment solidify their shared commitment to the new path, or would it bring to light divisions long obscured by silence? Jack, Mark addressed him calmly, can we talk about what just happened? In that moment, Jack recognized they were standing at the precipice of a deeper conversation that could redefine their entire dynamic. His heart raced. This could be the moment he had long been preparing for, or it could pull them right back into conflict. The uncertainty tightened its grip, yet Jack realized there was no turning back now. Jack's breath caught in his throat. The air was thick with anticipation, and he could see Mark grappling with something just beneath the surface. The lines etched on Mark's forehead deepened, and Jack felt the stakes rising higher than ever before. Sure, Mark, he managed, his voice steady despite a whirlwind of thoughts. Was this confrontation going to pull them apart, or could it be a pivotal moment in redefining their team's bond? They stepped aside, the chatter of the others fading as they progressed through the remnants of vulnerability. What's on your mind? Jack prompted, his curiosity piqued. Mark hesitated, his shoulders shifting, as if weighing a significant burden. I don't get it, Jack. You think everyone just shares their feelings, and it magically binds us together? He gestured toward the group, his frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Weren't we supposed to be working efficiently, focused on results? Jack's heart raced at Mark's pointed challenge. He could feel the transformative atmosphere of the workshop teetering on a precipice. He wanted to forge ahead to convince Mark that the emotional landscape they had just explored held merit, yet he also felt the need to respect Mark's perspective. Look, Jack said, choosing his words carefully, I know it may sound naive, but think about it. Those stories we just shared? They weren't meaningless. They showed vulnerability, yes, but also strength. When we connect on a deeper level, it builds trust. Trust creates a cohesive team, one that truly supports each other. Mark's brows furrowed deeper, his skepticism palpable. Trust doesn't pay the bills, Jack. Results do. You can't minute an hour together and expect everyone to start caring. This is work, not therapy. Jack took a moment to absorb these words, the truths buried within them. He understood the weight of Mark's role. But now was not the time to retreat. He needed to engage even deeper. You're right. But what if we could achieve both? Results will always matter, but so will the people driving those results. Happy, engaged employees lead to better performance. Mark fidgeted, the tension still looming fiercely. Just when Jack feared he had lost him, Mark shifted gears, his demeanor softening slightly. So you really believe these feelings matter? I do, Jack replied, the sincerity of his voice cutting through the lingering doubts. Maybe I didn't tee before, but those testimonials we just heard carried more power than any performance review. Think about how sharing made us feel. That's where real change can begin. For a moment, silence enveloped them both. Mark's expression shifted from skepticism to contemplation as if Jack's words finally penetrated the defenses he'd erected. Jack recognized that they were at a turning point, one that could redefine the team's dynamic, or potentially cause rifts he couldn't foresee. Just then, Jenna approached. Her eyes were bright, filled with curiosity about what had transpired between them. What did I miss? She asked, her genuine tone inviting them both to open up. Before Jack could respond, Mark waved a hand dismissively. It's nothing, just a difference in perspective. A hint of vulnerability flickered in Mark's eyes, a fleeting crack in his armor. Can we talk about this more? Jenna urged, her voice a mixture of eagerness and concern. I think what Jack is trying to say could really help us all. Jack's heart raced. This was the moment of truth, the chance to truly bridge the divide that had always lingered in their team. Their vulnerabilities stood naked in the shared air between them. The lingering thought crossed Jack's mind. Could they seize this opportunity, or would they shy away, allowing old habits to resurface? As he looked between Mark and Jenna, Jack realized he had one more chance to pivot not only his team's direction, but his own understanding of leadership. What if everything he believed could truly shift the dynamic he had always known? Let us explore this deeper, Jack suggested, grounding himself in conviction. Together, we have the potential to create something unprecedented. Are you with me? The moment hung in the air, poised on the edge of transformation. Would they step into the unknown together, embracing the potential for change? Or would the fear of exposure and vulnerability push them back into complacency? Suddenly, Mark sighed heavily. Okay, so what is the next step? Jack held his breath, aware that the words spoken next could set the tone for their future endeavors. They were standing on the brink of a new chapter. The pivotal tension surged within him, his mind racing, crafting pathways forward. As conversations swirled around him, the weight of possibility pressed against his chest, leaving Jack both exhilarated and uncertain. The future stretched ahead, unknown yet inviting, and Jack felt the sudden urge to leap forward. Yet, what awaited them on the other side? Would the risk of vulnerability yield transformative growth for all of them, or would it unravel the very fabric they were working to weave? Jack's thoughts raced in tandem with his heart as he considered how deep the sea of shared emotions might go. Jack inhaled deeply, the stillness of the moment swirling with unspoken emotions. We need to establish a framework for these discussions, he said, voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts. This was his moment to guide them toward uncharted territories, a place where their interpersonal dynamics could flourish against the backdrop of their professional goals. Let us schedule regular check-ins, he proposed. Not just about work, but about how we're feeling as a team. Each session could start with a round where everyone shares a personal highlight or a struggle. The words flowed from him, each suggestion imbued with his growing conviction. Mark raised an eyebrow. And what makes you think that LL improve our performance? We're not a therapy group. Jack leaned in, compelled to confront Mark's skepticism head-on. Because it's not just therapy. It's engagement. A team that knows each other beyond the office talk is a resilient team. Emotional engagement can drive productivity and creativity. We can't afford to dismiss that. Mark's frown deepened, but Jack saw the flicker of interest in his eyes. If we're going to try it, let us at least make it goal-oriented, he added. What if we set a specific project every month? The catch is that we ensure everyone's voice is heard in the brainstorming phase, bringing in those personal stories as catalysts for innovation. This could backfire, Mark muttered, but Jack decided to view it as a small victory. The challenge was not outright rejection, but the beginning of deliberation. It might, Jack agreed unapologetically. But the risk of stagnation is far greater. This is an opportunity to cultivate a more profound sense of trust. We embrace the uncertainty together. Jenna watched them both with intent. Are we serious about this? We've tiptoed around emotional engagement in the past, but Jack has a point. We're all different, but under these personal layers, we share common struggles. What if we used that as a springboard for our team dynamics? The tension between Mark and Jack ebbed slightly, replaced by a cautious curiosity from Jenna. Jack pressed on, by being intentional by establishing a culture where feelings are not just acknowledged, but explored. We stand to elevate our performance metrics. Mark crossed his arms, pondering the implications. Fine. Initiate a meeting for next week, but I want clear objectives tied to our output. This isn't about fluff, it's about results. He paused, then added, and, if you're wrong, I want full accountability. Jack met Mark's challenge with a mixture of resolve and trepidation. Agreed. The stakes were high. Jack had never felt such weight in his ambitions before. Leading this conversation could lead either to their ultimate cohesion or severe backlash if perceptions of weakness overshadowed adherence to performance. As thoughts of the upcoming meeting swirled within him. Jack sensed that this was a pivotal moment in his leadership journey, a testing ground for both him and his team. With fingers crossed, he envisioned a future where performance aligned harmoniously with trust and vulnerability. Could he really sustain this momentum? Over the next few days, Jack prepared meticulously. He crafted an agenda, mingled personal anecdotes with strategic insights, and rehearsed his words. Yet, beneath this preparation lay an unshakable doubt. Would his vision resonate with the team, or would Mark's resistance prove too formidable? On the day of the meeting, Jack arrived early, the nerves dancing in his abdomen like an electric current. He noticed Mark pacing outside, an image of barely contained energy. Jack's heart raced. Ready? Mark asked, his tone a mixture of caution and challenge. Jack nodded, his resolve fortifying. Let us lead the way, he replied, uncertain whether it was their professional journey or his personal evolution he was referring to. As they entered the room, Jack felt the collective weight of the moment. Would they embrace the opportunity for authentic connection, or would they cling to old barriers, suffocating potential growth? The door closed behind them, sealing their fate as they stepped into the evolving narrative of their team. The uncharted path before Jack promised revelations about his own capabilities and addressed the complex nature of teamwork. Would vulnerability be the conduit for their success, or would it become their undoing? Uncertainty hovered thick in the air, threatening to unravel at any moment. Jack sensed the atmosphere shift as he took his place at the head of the table, the group's tension palpable. Mark's skeptical gaze bore down on him, while Jenna's wide eyes shimmered with cautious optimism. This was no ordinary meeting. It was a battleground, one where Jack would face not just their skepticism, but also his own insecurity. Thank you for coming, everyone, Jack began, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of urgency. Today, we're charting a new course for how we function as a team. It's about time we integrate our personal stories into our professional strategy. He paused, gauging their reactions. Mark wore a mask of skepticism, arms crossed defensively. Jenna nodded encouragingly. Let us start by sharing a personal highlight or a struggle. I'll go first, he continued, pushing through his nerves. Last weekend, I spent some time volunteering at a local shelter. It reminded me of how interconnected our lives can be. We often forget that our personal experiences shape the way we show up at work. He glanced around the table, searching for a ripple of understanding in the faces before him. I believe sharing these moments will help us build a stronger foundation for our collaboration. Silence hung thick in the air. Jack's heartbeat pounded in his ears. Finally, Jenna broke the silence. I can relate to that. Her voice was quiet but earnest. My mother has ALZHEIMER, and some days it's really challenging. The impact of her illness has made me appreciate the little moments in life. It's tough, but it gives me perspective. Jack felt a surge of relief. Jenna's vulnerability opened the floodgates. One by one, others began to share. Mark's expression softened as he admitted, I struggle with balancing work pressures and family expectations. Sometimes I feel like I'm never enough for anyone. Jack couldn't help but feel a rush of gratitude. This was the engagement he had fought for. As they spoke, Their stories knitted a tighter fabric of connection, and he could see walls crumbling. He was learning the exquisite balance of being a leader that was not just respected but also relatable. However, as each revelation emerged, Jack was confronted by a startling realization. Emotional honesty was a powerful catalyst for not only connection but also conflict. Jenna's words shook him. It's hard to stay focused on work when I'm constantly worried about my mom. I feel paralyzed some days. Suddenly, Jack's heart raced again, this time not with doubt, but with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. The stakes had escalated. Jenna, we're here for you. How can we support you during this time? He asked, surprising even himself with his willingness to step into vulnerability. The air shifted again, becoming heavier. Jenna looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. I appreciate that. Honestly, just being able to share this feels like a weight lifted. The moment deepened, and Jack realized he was navigating uncharted waters not just for his team, but for himself. Would he be able to sustain this level of emotional authenticity? Would it lead to further connection, or would they risk falling deeper into the vulnerabilities exposed? Mark cleared his throat, breaking the momentary silence. If we're going to do this, we should establish some ground rules. Vulnerability must be met with respect. We can't dive too deep without guidelines. Jack considered this a guideline for emotional sharing. Perhaps this meeting was opening doors he hadn't anticipated. I agree, Mark. Let us establish this as sacred ground where respect leads our conversations. But let us also commit to following through, keeping our hearts and minds open. They nodded, but Jack couldn't shake the sound of Mark's wary tone. The path forward was fraught with possibility, yet riddled with unpredictable challenges. Could Jack navigate this delicate balance of teamwork and emotion while ensuring performance metrics remained strong? As the meeting adjourned, he felt a sense of momentum building, but also a gnawing fear stretching deeper. Had they truly cracked open a transformative chapter for their team, or had they only scratched the surface of their complexities? The questions lingered in Jack's mind, each one urgent and astute. In the coming days, he would have to manage not just the narrative of growth and vulnerability, but also the treacherous waters of professional expectations. He stepped out of the meeting room, marked by both exhilaration and trepidation. The moment of truth was approaching, where principles would be tested and real connections would demand accountability. Could he become the leader they needed, or would he falter in the face of their vulnerabilities? Weeks passed, and Jack's resolve to cultivate an empathetic workplace grew stronger by the day. He witnessed the effects of their initial discussions, where emotional vulnerability lay at the core of conversations. Employees engaged more meaningfully, a demonstration of how shared human experiences fortified their collective identity. Yet with each positive shift, a lingering fear haunted him. Could he truly sustain this culture amidst the demanding corporate landscape? In the quiet of his office, reflecting on their recent progress, Jack drafted a plan for ongoing workshops aimed at reinforcing their commitment. The memory of Jenna's impassioned confessions about her mother stirred within him a reminder of why they embarked on this journey of emotional openness. What better investment than in the heart of our company? He mused. That Thursday, Jack summoned his team to unveil the upcoming series aimed at embedding emotional literacy within their professional framework. A mix of excitement and skepticism buzzed through the room. Jack stood shoulder to shoulder with Sarah, who had evolved from a worried assistant to a key catalyst for change. Their shared commitment solidified into a palpable energy. Team, Jack began, his voice calm but charged. Today, we're launching a new initiative, a series of workshops designed to empower our emotional intelligence. We'll integrate storytelling as a business asset, enhancing our creativity and collaboration. As he spoke, he noticed Marg's scrutinizing expression. Do we really need to go down this path again? Mark interjected, crossing his arms with that familiar defiance. Aren't we pushing boundaries just to comfort ourselves? Jack felt a surge of determination. This isn't about mere comfort, Mark. It's about maximizing our potential. People perform best when they feel understood and supported. Jack turned his attention toward Jenna, who nodded slowly, a small smile hinting on her lips. Encouraged, Jack pressed on. Each of us brings unique perspectives. Sharing these will enhance our innovation. It's a competitive edge in a world where empathy drives engagement. We need to embrace it, not resist it. The atmosphere lightened as some murmurs of agreement rippled through the team, a testament to Jack's evolving leadership. We'll set up structured sessions where we can explore not just work-related topics, but those elements that make us the individuals we are today, he concluded. That night, Jack descended into reflection, piecing together a mosaic of change that had taken root. His phone buzzed. The message from Sarah brightened his spirits. Can we brainstorm about the workshops? I have some ideas. The next day, as their collaborative enthusiasm flowed, Jack was struck by a profound realization. Sarah had transformed from a nervous assistant to a trusted partner. The relationship they forged became emblematic of his own evolution, a transition from isolated authority to inclusive leadership. As weeks turned into months, Jack facilitated dynamic workshops that intertwined personal stories and business objectives. From the stories of caregivers like Jenna to Mark's new collaborative ventures, with each meeting, they began weaving emotional intelligence into their strategic planning. The accomplishments spoke volumes. Team projects flourished, ideas flowed with creativity heightened by collective connection, but transformation demanded accountability. Jack initiated monthly evaluations, gauging not just project success, but emotional climate. Each report validated their hard work. Productivity metrics were on the rise. Financial forecasts showed promise. Their unique culture lent itself to outstanding outcomes and loyalty from clients and employees alike. One afternoon, Mark approached Jack, an unexpected glimmer in his eyes. I didn't think this would work, he confessed, but I see the changes were more cohesive. At that moment, Jack knew their partnership was evolving too. Doubt had transformed into admiration, an acknowledgement of shared victories. With their annual report looming, Jack felt poised for an opportunity to solidify this new identity not only for themselves, but for the industry. He intended to present their case study at a national conference, showcasing that emotional engagement led to tangible corporate success, erasing doubts about the impact of vulnerability in leadership. Days later, he stood in front of luminaries of the architecture and business world. As he presented their journey, Jack's voice was steady, his message clear. We achieved success not just through design and numbers, but through redefining our corporate culture, embracing our humanity. Applause erupted as he concluded, a mix of pride swelling within him. Conversations ignited, and prospective clients flocked towards Jack's innovative outlook. This was his moment, a flawless embodiment of how far he had come. He proved that true leadership integrated not just metrics, but the heart of those driving them forward. Returning home, Jack felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The metamorphosis rippled through him, a culmination of personal growth and professional achievement. He had built a team not just out of necessity, but out of connection. In the months that followed, Jack found himself looking beyond a profit-driven perspective toward a sustainable model of success, where empathy met ambition. His heart was centered, his leadership fortified by the understanding that vulnerability and strength could coalesce. He reveled in his own transformation, finally achieving the solid confidence and established presence he hadn't dared to hope for. Jack Thompson was no longer just an architect of buildings, he was a creator of cultures, a leader reshaping the dimensions of emotional investment into the very foundation of corporate structure. Join us as we delve into more transformative stories that epitomize the true essence of personal growth and professional achievement. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to empower our reach and encourage others to find their own paths of overcoming adversity. Comment your thoughts on this conclusion and your theories about the unfolding journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.